Welcome to what I hope is the very last Sunday school video lesson that we'll have. Lord willing, we'll be able to have a Sunday school class in person next week. That's my prayer. I would like you to start by opening up your Bible to the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel, please. While you're doing that, I have a little game. And these are interesting facts that I bet you didn't know. Okay, I bet you didn't know. So we're going to start with one. Maybe you have heard of these facts before, but I think they're kind of cool. I bet you didn't know. All right, here's the first one. I bet you didn't know that it is impossible for most people to lick their elbow. Don't take my word for it. Give it a try if you want to. Impossible for most people to lick their elbows. Okay, I bet you didn't know that over the course of your entire life, now this is pretty disgusting, but over the course of your entire life, one person will have eaten over 70 bugs and 10 spiders while sleeping. While sleeping. Is that not disgusting? 70 bugs and 10 spiders? Oh my, that's a disturbing thought. Okay, I bet you didn't know that an ostrich's eye is bigger than his brain. His eye is bigger than his brain. And friends, I'm very thankful that that's not true of you and me. Okay, I bet you didn't know that there are 118 ridges around the dime. 118 ridges around the dime. You get bored, count it sometime. Bet you didn't know that an eagle's nest, the largest eagle's nests, weigh up to 4,000 pounds. 4,000 pounds. It's 2 tons. That's more than an elephant. How do the tree branches hold up those nests? Amazing. 4,000 pounds. Bet you didn't know that there are more plastic flamingos in the United States than there are real flamingos in the United States. More plastic ones than there are real ones. Bet you didn't know that a wild turkey can run up to 25 miles an hour. 25 miles an hour. So if a turkey starts chasing after you, look out. You could be in trouble. 25 miles an hour. Bet you didn't know that it's impossible for a pig to look straight up into the sky. Poor piggies. They don't know what they're missing. Bet you didn't know that a shrimp's heart is in his head. A shrimp's heart is in his head. Maybe some of you did know that. And the last one, I bet you didn't know a dragonfly can see in every direction at the same time. Isn't that cool? Every direction at the same time. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wow. I mean, you're playing dodgeball and you can see in every direction at the same time. That'd be pretty helpful. So those are a lot of things, silly facts that I bet you didn't know. But there's one thing that I want to make sure you do know. One thing I want to make sure that you do know. And that is that you can always trust God. No matter what, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what anyone else says, you can always trust God. Life right now is very weird. In fact, if somebody had said to you back at Christmas, hey, you want to know what's going to happen in 2020? It's going to be against the law to go to church, to go to school. You're going to be wearing masks. People are going to be wearing masks and staying 6 feet away from each other, not just in Wisconsin, but all over the world. And you'd go, no way, that's not happening. But it did. And things changed, didn't they? They changed very different and drastically for us. But one thing that didn't change, God didn't change. He stayed the same through the whole thing, through all of this mess. God never changes. Hebrews 13:8 tells us Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. Malachi 3:6 says, for I, the Lord, do not change. God never changes. And we can trust God. Back in Daniel, and I might have told you chapter 6, but open up to Daniel chapter 1. And just to give you a reminder of who Daniel was. Daniel grew up in a Christian home, like you guys have. He grew up in a Christian home, and he loved God. His parents taught him the Bible. He studied the scriptures, and when he was about 12 or 13 years of age, everything changed for him. His whole life changed. You see, Daniel lived in Israel, and Israel disobeyed God, and so God punished Israel by allowing them to be captured by going into war with a nation called Babylon, and Babylon won the war. And so the king of Babylon had many people taken from Israel to Babylon to live there. And Daniel and his friends, maybe cousins, we're not sure which, but Daniel and his friends lived there in Babylon, and they were separated from their parents. So everything changed for Daniel, everything. Things were going great. Again, Christian home, and then all of a sudden he's 12 or 13, so you can understand what it would be like. But he was separated from his family. Okay, so Daniel and his friends now live in Babylon, and you would think, okay, they're far away from their parents, and God, it seemed like, deserted them, but he didn't desert them. He stayed with them, and God didn't change. And Daniel and his friends continued living for the Lord. In fact, Daniel chapter 1, verse 17 says, "As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams." You see, God hadn't left Daniel. He was still the same. Years and years went by, and a new king comes and takes over Babylon. And Daniel didn't change. He remained faithful to God because God didn't change. God remained faithful to Daniel. Daniel and his friends are all grown up now. And again, people noticed something different about Daniel. They knew something was different. Look, please, now at Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6 and verse 3. Daniel 6 and verse 3. "Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him." You see, an excellent spirit was in Daniel, and they noticed it. They saw it. They saw it in Daniel, and they noticed that he was different. And so Daniel continued to do the things that he had been taught when he was a child. See, you remember the story. He prayed 3 times a day, even though Daniel knew it was against the law to pray. Daniel prayed, and he wasn't afraid or ashamed to let people know that he loved God. Daniel wasn't afraid to let people know he loved God. So Daniel continued obeying God and doing what was right. But because Daniel had prayed, they were going to punish him. And they put Daniel into a den or a cave full of hungry lions. Now you say, wait a second, hold it a minute. You just said that God, we can trust God. How can we trust God when he allowed Daniel to be thrown into a cave full of hungry lions when he hadn't done anything wrong? How can we trust God? You can. And I'm going to show you. You can trust God no matter what. No matter what. Verse 22 of chapter 6. You know the story. This isn't a new story for you. But I wanted to put it in a little different perspective because of where we're at today. But Daniel was thrown into that den of lions, very hungry lions. And he was put there, and this is what happened. Verse 22, Daniel said, "My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me." You see, while Daniel was put in there, an angel came and ministered to Daniel and took care of the lions. The angel shut every mouth of those lions, and the lions couldn't even claw at Daniel. The lions didn't bother Daniel or push him around. In fact, Daniel and the angel were able to have a great conversation that night, have an all-nighter. Can you imagine the questions Daniel would have for the angel? I think that would be pretty neat to be able to spend the night with an angel all to yourself, listening to any kind of question you might have. So Daniel and the angels spent that night in the cave, and nothing happened to them. And Daniel knew that he could trust God. From the time that Daniel was little until the time when he was old like I am, Daniel knew that he could always trust God. Even though his life had changed and his circumstances had changed, God never changed. Daniel knew he could always trust God no matter what. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. And guys, your situation might change. We don't know what next week is going to bring. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But we do know that no matter what, we can always trust God. No matter what. God is always going to be on your side. You continue to obey him. You love him. You serve him. And know that you can always trust him. No matter what happens, no matter the situation, you can always trust God.